guys, today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about flutes. Flutes were actually some of the earliest instruments ever made, and people would hear the wind blowing across reeds in the marsh, and the wind would make such a beautiful eerie sound as it went across the tops of the reeds. And they thought, we could do that. We could make our own, be the wind. We've got air, we could do this. And what they discovered, that if they cut reeds at different lengths, they made different sounds. And if you bind them all together, you can make a whole little melody. Some of the earliest flutes are flutes like this called panpipes. And panpipes are basically exactly that. They're reeds that are bound together. Longer ones make a lower note, shorter ones make a higher note. Oh, they're really hard to play. Really hard to play. Panpipes are still very popular in some South American countries, like Colombia and Brazil, and make a great sound. I've also seen them a lot in Romanian music and that kind of thing. Really fun, but hard. Moving your head around like that is hard to do. So then people discovered that if instead of cutting a bunch of different reeds, different lengths, if you just take one big reed and punch holes in it at different lengths, it does the same thing. And you use your fingers to make it longer or shorter. This particular one is also made out of wood, and it's like a reed. I'm not sure if this one is exactly a reed, but it's hollow inside, and just holes cut out, just like a recorder has holes cut out, but it doesn't have the extra little bits at the end. To make a sound on this, I don't know if you can see. I put it somewhere where it's clear. There's a little notch out of the top of the reed there. That little notch, that's what you're trying to put your air over. And again, it's pretty hard to do. It's give and take whether or not I actually make sounds out of this at the best of times. But it's got a pretty cool sound when I do. Well, this one came from Mexico. And again, it's hard to make a sound out of. It takes a lot of practice, and I don't practice it very much on that. But it's a cool thing to have. It's very simple, but as you see, it takes, you got to get your mouth right, exactly in the right spot, and then get your air going just exactly the right way. So people went, that's kind of hard. That's kind of hard to do. So they got inventive. And the same kind of thing, again, is this made from a reed, and holes cut in it exactly the same way. This one doesn't have a hole in the back. But the little notch that you see on the Mexican flute is right here. And they've attached a little piece on the top that helps direct the air to exactly where it's supposed to go. Makes it way easier to play. This is the first of the flutes that I have that I could actually make a pretty good sound on. We've been learning Ode to Joy on the violin. You can learn it on here. Now this is a pretty cool one. It comes from a little island in the Caribbean called Grand Turk. And they play them down there all the time. The people, when metal started to be a thing and being used a lot, and used a lot in manufacturing, people made instruments from it. And usually tin, and sheeted tin. So the first of the penny whistles was just rolled up sheet of tin, and the mouthpiece molded into a shape, and holes punched in it at various lengths so you could play a tune on it. Cool thing about penny whistles is that they look exactly the same, but they come in all kinds of different lengths. Now this one is a D whistle. So when all your fingers are covered, it plays a note D. This one, a little bit shorter, looks the same, but this is an F whistle. So when all the fingers are covered, makes an F. I like the D whistle better. Same thing. I'll play A little bit of Ode to Joy for you. That's the D whistle. But as I say, they come in various lengths. This is also a D whistle, but obviously makes a much lower sound. This one has a little bit more, sounds like a flute than it does the whistle. The whistle's a very high-pitched sound, but this one is much lower, and so you can see the whole thing. I'm going to stand up. There. You see, that one's got a really cool low sound. That's why I played it low register first. And a little bit more of a breathy kind of sound in the higher register. Again, that's also a D whistle. Then, somewhere along the way, they decided to make flutes play sideways, called a transverse flute. So it plays off to the side. Same kind of thing. You make the sound by blowing air over a hole, just like all the others. That's how you make a sound. And this one, again, this one's made from carved wood. And this one comes from Quebec and was made in Quebec. There's a lot of instruments in Quebec that are handmade. And this one is called a fife. And it's very popular around the time of the Battle of the Plains of Abraham. And in fact, the reason I have this is because a friend of mine used to play when they did reenactments of the Battle of the Plains of Abraham in Quebec City, and so he gave me this as a present for going to see the show. So same thing, Ode to Joy. The high register in that I find a bit harsh. It's kind of a harsh sounding thing. But then, same thing as with the whistles, they made a longer version. These are actually the first of the kind of modern day flutes. And this is an Irish flute. And same thing. This one, I've got to adjust a little bit because it's really hard. The hard thing about this one is reaching the holes. It's same as the low D whistle. It has a mellower kind of a sound to it. Sorry, I didn't play that as best as I could. But hard thing about the Irish flute is, for me, is stretching to reach those, for your fingers to cover those holes. And if you haven't got them covered completely, you get that sort of breathy sound. And it takes a lot of practice and a lot of stretch in the hands to do it. So it's quite hard, and it's quite heavy, believe it or not. Otherwise, it's the same as a modern day flute where you blow over the top, but it doesn't have that extra little piece there, that comfort piece for your mouth, for your embouchure with that. The other thing, because this is made of wood, it around the joints where it's put together, if it's not exactly the right humidity, they might get a little leak around there. And again, it doesn't make a good sound. So you've got to really watch the humidity on these. With that, people discovered, because it's so hard to reach those long things, that if you add keys to it that help you out a little bit, where you press one thing down, it helps another. The first modern day flute, had 6 keys on it that all helped you to make sharps and flats and to make all of those different kind of notes on it. And that was to help you do that. Also to help a little bit with tuning, because you'll see in all the different flutes that I've played that some notes sound not quite exactly in tune with that. And people ever trying to perfect things and to make it better would say, okay, if I add this, or if this hole is just a little bit bigger, this hole is a little bit smaller. And you'll see the modern day flute has all the keys on it and has a much bigger sound. Little bump at the end there. I blew a bit too hard. As you can see, modern day flute has a much bigger dynamic range. It's much easier to play softer notes and louder notes and to fill of the orchestra. The orchestra has, of course, got bigger and bigger and bigger, and so a flute had to fit in and make a bigger and bigger and bigger sound. Thus, always needing to refine and perfect and do all that kind of stuff with it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little presentation. We were going to put up a few questions about it to see what you learned from it. And we'd love for you to share those answers when we have our Google Meets time. Thanks a lot, guys.